everybody, welcome to the Insta-Good Show, where we help you get Insta-Good at Instagram. My name is Seth, and you can find me at these places at Seth Muse on Instagram or at sethmuse.com. And today, I really hope to help your church get Insta-Good at Instagram, get better. We're going to talk about some interesting things for Instagram today. I'm excited about metrics, which I know it's hard to get excited about metrics because metrics are numbers and numbers are boring, but they represent people and they represent what you're doing and how your content is going. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. But first, I want to tell you about a new feature with Instagram. New feature alert. And I'm very excited. I kind of accidentally discovered it. Instagram's gotten weird about publishing like, hey, we have something new to offer. They just kind of sometimes do that, sometimes don't. You have to kind of rely on your friends doing something weird and going, how'd you do that? And then figuring out they've got a new feature. So the new feature is a picture-in-picture sharing style. So basically when you take, I'll just leave this up. When you take a post from your feed and you hit that little arrow that shares it to your story. So you find somebody else's post, that you liked, that's on your feed, and you go, I'm going to share that, and you hit it, it shares it to your story automatically. And usually it just brings up the little square, or whatever they've got, and it puts kind of color bars on the top, and it can make it look nice or whatnot. And you can treat it like a story, but it just kind of does it automatically. Now there's a new feature that allows you to shoot video with it in the corner. It's a little weird and kind of buggy, I guess, but I'm going to show it to you. Here's what it looks like. So when I shared my feed post, this is what it did. So I recorded a video like, what is this? What's going on? You can't hear it, but that's where it puts it. Now, if you tap that, you just tap the image that you're trying to share, it will go back to that normal, like full screen version that we know. And so you can toggle back and forth, and then it gives you an option to shoot video or whatnot, but, and kind of go back and forth between those two. But I thought that was an interesting new feature. Some things you can do with this. When you have a video that you're sharing that's going to play, because that plays while you're talking. So if you've got a video you want to offer commentary on, or a graphic you want to offer commentary on, this is a little bit next level of sharing. Instead of just sharing someone's work, it's a way for you to go, hey, it's really cool you guys did this, that kind of thing. Or this is a really great graphic, and just to offer a video commentary that's a little bit more engaging for stories. So that for churches, man, when you find really great user-generated content, this is a cool feature for you. And I always talk about user-generated content because I think it's some of the best content where you don't even make anything. You just find things that people you follow made and share that. And into your story. It's like you can find it on your feed, find other stories that you're tagged in, you can share to your story. But this is a cool feature because it allows you to interact with it. And we can, I think, thank TikTok for their green screen type stuff and reels coming over and things like that, because it's changing the game on engagement. So this is a cool feature. I really love that Instagram is getting some of this involved in stories as well, because honestly, stories, reels, feed, it's just so much going on. So kind of pick which ones you like. And I haven't done a lot of reels, but, so today I'm just talking about stories and feed. We'll do reels coming up soon. I'll work on getting more content for that. And basically I'll work on building things for that so that I can show you what I did. But for now, that's a cool new stories feature. I'm really excited about that. Let's talk about metrics. Metrics are interesting, and we always want to. It's one thing to have a bunch of metrics. I think a lot of us like to have a bunch of metrics, but we don't really know what they mean or which ones we should care most about. And, we can look into Instagram Insights. We can even set up a dashboard through like Dash This or, Slido or whatever you've got. You can pull that info in and you can see all your stuff and feel like you're running a spaceship. And that's fun. And that makes you feel really important. But at the end of the day, if we're not looking at these metrics and going, what are we trying to do? And how do these numbers show us how we're doing at what we're trying to do? Then we're going to really just be a really glorified, mathematician that is not really helping anything. So I wanted to look at some of the metrics that are important for Instagram, and I have a few screenshots and things we'll look at here. But first, let's look at feed, and then we'll look at stories. So when we look at posts in your metrics, first, when you go into Insights, the activity tab is really important. So check out the activity tab. Here's kind of what it looks like. I have dark mode going on because I'm super cool these days with my dark mode. And when you get into dark mode, when you get into the activity tab, this is what you'll see. So it's kind of an overview tab. You'll see impressions, likes, things like that. I kind of scrolled down so you can see the bottom part, because I think this bottom section is more important than your impressions or likes, which are at the top. Interactions is really important. You can see what days of the week, and you can't like change that to see like, how did I do the week before that? Or so I wish they would do that, but it really just shows you, and it gives you like a range of recent activity and groups it together automatically. So you can see what days of the week you really had more engagement. Now you can look at my engagement here and you can see I posted something on Monday and Wednesday. I didn't post anything. I posted something on Thursday previously. So the days I didn't post anything, obviously engagement way down. We got a couple of questions from David, working on developing metrics overview for our staff now. Excellent. That's always good. Those dashboards are really great to show big picture. You don't want to get in the weeds because a lot of people don't want to see that, but if you need it, that's really cool. We do that for our clients at Church Comm Team. We provide a dashboard for, all the stuff that we're doing, and it helps us kind of give a picture. It's really great to present to your pastor and say, here's how it's going. And they go, okay, cool. I can see it. But for us, we look in the actual data here. And you ask, do you think metrics are better tackled per post or weekly? What's better for an overview? That's a great question. As I look at metrics, I always look for post and feed in the last 30 days. I like to, unless I've done something huge over the last 7 days, because you can do 7 days, 30 days, 3 or 4 months, 6 months, I can't remember, and then maybe a year. For posts, I really just feel like the last 30 days is a good measuring stick to look at monthly. So when you're doing like reporting or whatnot, you can see here's how we did month to month. And then you can look into the 7 days to see which, how we did on different things, because Instagram itself, unless you have a reporting dashboard or something like that's tracking it for you and keeping record, it pretty much doesn't keep track of anything you can't automatically set here. So if you go past, a year, it's probably not keeping data for you. So if you want to keep month to month, I recommend the month to month. So when I show you these slides here in a second, these screenshots, I'm going to show you my 28 day, I think it's 28 days or 30 days, however they group it. But that's what I would really focus on. And the thing you want to do with data too is you want to focus on the same set every time. So you have stuff you can track. You don't want to check 30 days and then check 7 days and then check a year and then kind of give 3 different reports, because they don't say the same thing, right? So this is just basic data. You want to keep that consistent so that you can track things and see how you're actually doing. But the activity tab is where you start. It gives you an overview. Profile visits, I think, are really important. And website clicks, I think, are really important, because those are action items you can actually track and see how you're growing. So when you're looking at this data, you get a quick overview. You can see what days are my popular. Obviously, Monday's a big day for me, or what I posted on Monday was better. So it really doesn't give you granular information, but it gives you some kind of general idea. You want to get granular, you go into the next in the next screens, which is your content tab. And when you get in the content tab, you can see it there at the top. You get these divisions like this. So I think there are 4 really important. I think there's 4 really important metrics here in content that, you should pay attention to. Obviously, you look at your activity tab and see overall stuff. I have notes over here. I'm just making sure I keep up. But understand that when you're looking at content, here's something super important you have to understand, is that your content, no piece of content, which is like a post or a video, none of them by themselves check all the boxes that you can track. You're not going to get great engagement, profile clicks, website clicks, calls, tap backs, whatever. You're not going to get all these things on one piece of content. So it's important for us to understand what we're trying to do with each one and measure those. So an example, if I have something I want people to sign up for something, and I ask them to click the website, the link in the bio, then I'll take those posts that I asked them to click the link in the bio and see how those posts did. Now, you can't really filter that here, but you can see which ones you did. And then you have to basically do a little math on your own and see how that turns out. Because if you didn't ask them to click the bio, why would they? It's like you want to see how your CTAs, your calls to action, are actually functioning. But if you didn't give them anything, then if you didn't say do something with this post and you didn't have anything for them to do, then checking your profile visits and website clicks isn't really fair in a way, because it's not really what that post was. Like, you put up a post of a scripture and you just want them to be inspired to read it, maybe do something else with it. You're not asking them to go to your website. So that metric doesn't make sense for that piece of content. What makes sense there is comments, likes, shares, things like that, which we'll talk about here. But first of all, I just want to look at when you're thinking about your overall posting for Instagram, what I think the platform is best for, and I'm kind of going with that as an a priori assumption, is that you agree with me, is that it's for conversations and connections and community, and not necessarily information, etc. But I think you can get your values out there. You can really create a message that creates a community around the right things for your church in Instagram. I think that you can really do that with this if you're focused. So there's a couple of metrics I think are important. First one is engagement. Engagement's just kind of an overall rating that they give based on comments, likes, and shares, etc., kind of like Facebook does, where it's almost like it's not a percentage rating of any kind, but you can see there was engagement as they define engagement. I use air quotes there. But engagement's just kind of another overall kind of marking to see which one of your posts were most engaging, which is why I think it's one of the most important metrics you can look at in the back end of Instagram, because it kind of gives you a quick summary of how are we doing. So check out your engagement post, and you can see here I had one that was 78. That's because I posted about a blog that was about the negatives of nepotism, which churches love to act like nepotism's okay and it's not a big deal. And so a lot of people were upset about it, and I got some DMs, etc. So that was a bit of a hot take, but it was one of my more engaging posts. Now you see my next one was a tweet that I screen captured from Nick Goodner, who, when he says things, he's for Creative Church, when he says things, people respond. And then the other one was a little bit political, so I won't go into it, but that's easily engaging. And then, these two that I put out recently that are brightly colored and have a lot of content, and it's kind of a Seth's back on Instagram and full force kind of post, and they're doing okay. But engagement's a big number. The next one I would say is comments. And these aren't really in particular order after this. I just thought engagement was really important up front. But after this, it's kind of whatever. Comments are super important, though. Notice I got 10 on that one with the blog, but and I only have 1,600 or so followers. I mean, I'm a micro kind of, not a micro influencer. I'm not an influencer, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't have a huge millions of followers. It's like I'm pretty niche and pretty focused. But, that 10 comments there, not bad. But it was my highest one, and they kind of shook out again, same way. But comments are ways that you gauge whether or not your content is creating conversations, right? And when you are you want conversations to happen, comments is a good metric to track. So I think that's a good use for Instagram. Now there's a case to be made for Instagram feed is not super lively conversation, right? And in fact, one of the biggest frustrations I have with watching churches do Instagram is when people do make comments on their feed posts, they never respond back. And you certainly can't have a conversation if you're being ignored. So that's one of those things that if people start to feel like they can talk to you there, they might start. It takes a while because they're not as apt to talk as they are on Facebook or even in the toxic wasteland that is YouTube comments. But it's something you have to churn and to nourish when you want to see that happen. But comments is a good metric for checking if you're meeting the value of creating conversations and community. Next, profile visits. Now, when you ask people to do things, this is a good one to check. This is profile visits a little broader than website clicks, right? If they visit your profile, that means they just looked at your profile. You don't really know what they did. They might have gotten directions. They might have just see what your wall was like and what they can expect from you. They might have looked for a phone number or a way to contact you. They might have just done it accidentally, or they might have wanted to see, a little bit more about your church. So it's kind of indicating that there's interest, in other words. So profile visits are something to go, how many people are we really getting interested in us? And I wish there was a way to track like who they were and talk to them, like a lead kind of deal for email or whatnot, with tracking pixel IDs, etc. But there's not. But still, it's a metric to kind of say, are we, and typically profile visits, I would say this as well. Typically profile visits, people that do that are new. They're checking you out. And so if you want to get a feel for whether or not you're being shared enough and your community's building and you're reaching new people, you could look at reach, you could look at all those other numbers, but profile visits is like a next level of interest. So if you're focused on getting 5 to 10 profile visits a month and trying to grow that, then what are you doing to ask people to go to your profile? Because a lot of times it's content where you say, the links in the bio in your stories, or the links in our bio on your post, and you're saying, go check it out. They may go to the link to the profile and not click the link based on what else they see, who knows. But usually a profile visit also leads to a website click. So that's why that's an important metric, is that the more you can get them just to look at your profile, the more likely they are to be enticed by the link click. Because obviously they have to go to the profile first to click the link. Logic. So anyway, profile visits are a good one. Notice I got 50 on the one I had a blog. So if I'm asking them to go do something, those posts, I want to make sure those are good. These other posts, I really didn't ask anybody to do anything. So they're low. So I'm okay with that. I'm not worried that I only got 7, 2, 1. Oh no, that's a clip from Return of the Jedi. What are they supposed to do with that? This right here is, I want you to go read my blog. They click the profile. Good. That's good. So that's a good metric. So anyway, make sure you know what you want to do and then use the metrics to see how you're doing. Shares is another one. I haven't gotten a ton of shares. Sharing is hard on Instagram. Sharing is hard on Instagram. It's very easy on Facebook. There's 3 ways to share. You can share from your feed to your story. You find somebody else's post and feed, like the new feature that I mentioned earlier can do. If you're tagged in an Instagram story from someone that is public, then you can take that story and add it to your story. Or you can use something like Repost app that actually you click the little 3 dots and it says copy link, and then you open Repost app and there it is, and then you hit it and then it opens Instagram back up and you can repost it to your feed. So that's a feed to feed post from someone else to reshare. So sharing is hard in Instagram, but when you get them, here's what you can know. This content was good enough for someone to take an extra step on an app that it's hard to do to make sure that other people saw it. So that kind of content, I would look at that and go, let's think about doing more of that. Because when you are shared, that is big, right? Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, doesn't matter. When someone shares your content, they are literally saying, what you've put out to your audience, which I'm a part of, I would like to now share to my audience because I think it's important. So your content goes before more people that it would not have reached. That's a big one. Shares are a big one to watch. So let's look at the story metrics. Okay, so that was a 4. Engagement, comments, profile visits, and shares. You may want to add website clicks in there too. It depends on what you're trying to do. And again, there's a million things you can look at, right? That's just 4 of probably 15 or so different metrics. Speaking of lots and lots of metrics that are crazy, let's take a look at story metrics. Story metrics are a whole different dude. Because they only go back 14 days or 7 days. So I always look at 14 days to see a little bit longer trend, but you don't need to really go back 30 days on these, and 7 days is probably fine, but just keep it consistent. But the point is that these live and die really quick. They have 24 hours to live, right? So when you're making this kind of stuff, your metrics are really, they really do reset every 7 to 14 days. So what you did 14 days ago doesn't really have an impact on what you're going to do this next 14 days, if that makes sense. because stories are all about being in the moment, reporting, documenting, being present, being live, being raw. You can do produced stories, and that's great, but they're produced for a moment. And that's the whole point of stories, and why they're so popular, is that I don't have to like save this and care about this for a long period of time. I'm here for this instant, this moment to have with you, and then I'm done. And, you know, in those moments, you got to make the most of it. So when we look at these metrics, I think that some of the most important metrics you can look at are replies, the back, and I'll explain what that is, and reach. Let me just show you all the options. There's a ton of options to look at when you're trying to check. So I have this set to 14 days. Back is the first one I want to talk about. See it at the very top there. What this is if you post a story and someone watches it and then taps the back button to watch it again, that's a huge metric. When you think about what someone's saying when they do that, why I think this is important is that's content that they really felt like they needed to stop the consumption move of the swipe, tap, swipe, whatever. And they're like, hey, hold up. I care about that. I want to see that. What is that? And they hit back and they may pause. I wish Instagram would add a pause timer, some kind of a stat on that. So you can see like all the stories that someone paused and held and how long they held it, which would do a couple things. One, it would show how much, if you're typing a lot of text, if they're actually reading it. Two, it would alert women of when they're being creeped on, which is really good to know, and you can block those people. And then three, it just tells you what types of content are really, really important for are going to work, and which types of kind of long form text you got to stop and watch this content that doesn't work. And so it gives you better ideas. So I wish they would do that, but they don't have that. So alas, we have to press on. Back, because I know they're gauging it. That's the thing. I know freaking Instagram is gauging it, because that's how they're deciding what to show you. It's how long you watch something. So they're tracking it. They don't want to give it to us. And probably because of the second reason I mentioned, it's creepy when people do that sometimes. So, you know, would you want to know someone's doing that? I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird conversation for another time. But back is an important metric to check. Let me show you what else is here. You see calls, emails exited. That means they just, you know, swiped and left all your stories. They were like, I'm done listening to you totally. Follows means they went from your story to your feed and to your profile and decided to follow you. Forward means I tapped forward. That's also a good metric to look at, just like back is for opposite reasons. Get directions, impressions, just I showed it to you, how many times you see it. Link clicks, next story, profile visits, reach. Let's talk about reach. Reach down here at the very bottom is a big one, because reach is the number of unique accounts that this particular story was shown to, versus an impression, which is how many times it was shown. So if the same person watched a story more than once, it counts. Let's say they watched it 3 times, it counts as 3 views. With reach, that counts as one person you reached, even no matter how many times they viewed it. So that gives you a little bit more realistic number, which is why I think reach is something you should look at. And then, you know, when you're gauging, they don't have anything to show you how many DMs you got. They, like here at the bottom, they can show you text. If you have texting set up, they can show you shares, which I think is another important one. But they also have website clicks. So if they come from the story to a website click, they don't have anything to show you, like, did you comment in my DM sticker, or the poll that I put up, did you take it? How many people took the poll? You know, they don't have anything like that. It's weird to me that they don't, because that's the kind of stuff we do thinking it has a lot of engagement, and then we have nothing to really prove it other than anecdotal evidence, like we always have in the church of, you know, my Aunt Sally took the poll, it must have been good, you know, for the other 100 people that didn't, you know, or whatever. So I think the Instagram analytics are bad. They're not great. They're helpful, but they're not great. So, and this has always been the issue with Instagram. There's little things like this that always frustrate me about this app. I love this app, but it is frustrating because they don't have everything that you really need. It's just enough to show you kind of what you want or might want to know, and then they don't tell you what you really want to know. So anyway, website clicks is important. What else did I say? Shares. Shares obviously important. So when you're asking people to document an event, say Christmas events coming up, I don't know what you guys are doing for Christmas. Obviously, it's going to look very different. Thanksgiving is going to look very different. But there are ways you can get people involved. And this is one of the great ways to do it and get user-generated content all the time in stories is by simply asking them to make their profile public and tag your church in their story. So and it matters, like if they put up 3 stories and they only tag you in the first one, you can only reshare the first story, whichever one you're tagged in. So it's important to coach your people through stories to help you share their content, which actually gets more people to want to do community-based things in stories. Anyway, so again, these metrics exist so that we can, figure out if we're succeeding at what we're trying to do. If you don't know what you're trying to do, these metrics are just going to be a big spreadsheet of numbers that make everybody, tired. And the content you post, each one does not check all the boxes. I mean, so what you measure and what you're trying to do become a much better indicator of success than simply high numbers in what we would think were sexy categories like likes and, comments or not comments, but likes and things like that. So likes are fine, but they really have been diminished in what they really mean. But anyway, hopefully that is helpful for you. So now, as we move along, it is time for today's hot take of the day. Hot take time. So here's my hot take. I don't think you need to be everywhere. And I posted about this on my Instagram. There's a myth out there you have to be everywhere. We've talked about this before, but I just want to encourage you again that as we go more digital, there's a pressure for us to feel like we have to start new accounts on rising platforms, and we have to make sure we have the best content across the board on 15 different channels. And let's be honest. I mean, it is a lot of work to manage all of those things. And sometimes it's just not reasonable to do that. But again, there's really not even a need for you to do that. And honestly, when you start to label what you're trying to do with each of those platforms, the things you do for them reduce and become easier because you have a focus and you don't have to figure it out. You know what you're doing. You just have to go do it. Then it's a matter of execution, delegation, teamwork, and we can get on board together with that and probably do a lot more than we thought we could. But the reason we're often frustrated with social media and doing so much is because we think we need to be everywhere and we think we need to say the same things everywhere. Like if you think having your announcements on YouTube is important, it's not. It's not. Having your announcements most places on social is not really that important. But if you're going to put them in stories, they die. Fine. That gives people a chance to ask questions or inspirational content. What does that look like on YouTube? That might be a devotional 2-minute video with the pastor. On Instagram, it might be a scripture graphic. That's different, so how you do what you're trying to do on each platform determines how easy it really is to make the content. So don't feel like you have to be everywhere right now. I know that your people are online, but find some avenues that really work well for your people that you guys can manage. You have a live stream, you have a website, you have maybe a Facebook group or a page. And right now I would really encourage people to be on Facebook groups. I don't even think Instagram is the most important thing right now. I really don't. I think it's an important thing, but it's not the most important thing right now. It's extra. If you're not doing Facebook groups, do Facebook groups before you really focus on Instagram, unless you have students or something like that. I'm talking about for adults. But the point is that right now there's a lot of pull to just be everywhere and do everything. And it's part of our mental health problems, man. We're just stressing like crazy. You don't have to do that. Find the things you can do well and do those things. And you will thank me for it. You can send money via PayPal at Seth at SethMuse.com for that information. So last little hot take, I want to do one more, is that I want to just share with you what I think each of the 3 now sections of Instagram are best at. I know this is a long episode today. There's a lot more than I normally give, but I haven't been with you guys in a while, so I'm looking forward to being back to our 15 to 20 minute format here in the next few weeks. But I wanted to share you have feed, you have stories, you have reels. What do we do? And then you can even say we have DMs and all kinds of other things. Live. There are 3 real content creation platforms within one said Instagram. And that is your feed, stories, and reels. And reels and stories are really similar in a lot of ways, but they're different enough to be aware of it. So here's what I'm going to give you. This is not a biblical approach. This is my opinion. So here's how I would do it. I would look at your feed as a place for created content. Your church makes that, but using it for inspiration, scripture, questions, things like that. If you want to, people is a big one for the feed. Photos, photography, focus on documenting what's going on in a value sense, not in a here's what happened today kind of sense. Find out like here's what God is doing in our church and find ways to visually express it on your feed. I think when you can use your feed that way, you get the most out of it, because then you can, and big plus, you can schedule that. Okay. You can make it and schedule it, and that's helpful. Use tools like Buffer or Hootsuite later. The Content Creator Studio in Facebook can do it now. So find some way to schedule and plan that way. So then stories, I'm going to say, are for in the moment documentation and engagement. Stories are for interaction, engagement, fun. Remember fun? Remember that? I think stories are a great place for fun. Not as much as reels, but a good place for it. For questions and interaction especially. When we used to ask all these, like, what's your favorite pizza toppings kind of posts, which are still fine for your feed, I just think you'll actually get more play out of it in your story because people can DM you and tell you, or share that. And maybe not that one, but just there's some new features coming in stories that are really cool for people to say things and then share it through stories more. So anyway, stories, I think, for engagement, fun. And then reels, we're not going to talk about reels today. We'll talk about reels coming up in the next few weeks. I've been kind of watching, seeing what this is. I haven't done a lot of these, so I'm going to do some to try to get some experience with it a little bit more so we can talk about it. I don't like talking about things I don't really have personal experience with when it comes to this, but I just feel like that's room for me telling you some really dumb things. But reels, I feel, is good for, I want to say, commentary. That's interesting. Fun, teaching, and experimentation. With reels, there's opportunities for you to take a piece of content like we did with at the top of the show. We had a kind of reels type feature added to stories where you can take a piece of content, share it, and comment on it. I think that is a feature that's new in a way, the way we can do it on reels with the green screen, which is where you just show the whole back is a post or something you found and you're in there talking over it on green screen. There's a lot of things like that I think are just really interesting ways to convey information and opinions and thoughts. And so why that is important is I think that is when you think about Bible teaching, that's important. However, when I say teaching, I don't mean devotionals, because reels is a place for fun, for passion, for pet projects. If you're going to teach the Bible, you need to find a way to do it that kind of fits in how the app goes. I know that when I scroll through TikTok, it's fun and games, and then suddenly a pastor speaking is like, okay. I mean, I agree with you, but I'm not like here for that. You know, it just feels jarring and weird because you don't see it a lot. Now, if you're totally Christian TikToker, then it probably is normal, but most people are not really using it that way. And Reels is still trying to determine kind of how it is, right? We still don't really know what to make of Reels. It's still very young. So try some things, see if that works, but I don't think that's going to be your best bet. I think what you should really focus on is if you're going to teach scriptural principles, which I think you should, find a way to do it like a YouTube talking head. Look how content creators on TikTok do it. Look at other content creators on Reels do it. And when they're talking about even politics, or they're talking about biblical, what's the word? Apologetics, and how they're carrying themselves, framing themselves, talking. Take some cues from some of these high-end creators and what they're doing, and see if there's a way to apply what they do to our content, and do it like they do it, and you might have a little more success. But just keep watching, try things. Reels is a sandbox, and so don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. I know that can be scary for some, but hey, I mean, probably nobody at your church is really watching them, so just yet, unless you're a younger church. So if you mess up, not a ton of people will see it. All right, so that's the show for today. I'm going to close her down, but find me at Seth Muse on Instagram or SethMuse.com, and I'm going to help you out any way I can. If your church needs remote help, check me out at churchcomteam.com, and we provide remote help for churches who need communication support, and we do it through we do it remotely too. And it's basically for less than the price of a full-time employee that you would hire. You get a whole team of pros. So anyway, love to talk to you if you're interested in that. But have a good day. Hope you guys are staying well, stay healthy, and I hope you get good at Instagram so that your church can see the beauty of the gospel clearly on social media rather than all the ridiculous craziness that they normally would. All right. Have a good day. See ya.